Hello, this is Brian. Today is Thursday, January 29th, 2026. And I'm here in Cleveland National Forest here in the Laguna Mountains. I'm at the first very big turnout right over here along Sunrise Highway. Just a couple of brief moments from leaving Interstate 8. Now, I'm over here at this pullout for a reason. And that reason today is to try to get up to a couple of very random unnamed peaks here in the Lagunas, none of which are even listed on Peakbacker. In fact, only one of these peaks is actually listed on the topo maps, and that would be the first peak of this day, which would be Peak 4509, 4,509 feet. So Peak 4509 will be my first attempt for the day, and that's the only peak with a topo map designation elevation. The other two peaks beyond it are a little bit lower and are just represented by elevation contour rings. It's already about 12:45, so I got a very late start today. I'll try to knock this out. Sorry for the wind. See if I can knock this out early, relatively quickly. I might go up to the crest for a couple of little, maybe for a couple of short adventures if time's on my side. But yeah, I've been on vacation this week. I've only been out once, and I haven't uploaded those videos yet. And that's why I went to Powell Mountain State Park the other day. And hopefully by the time this video is out, those two videos, I have two small hiking videos for that. And we'll see. So there should be a firebreak or use trail that leads me to these three peaks if I decide to go to all three of them. The first one will be Peak 4509, which will be the first peak along the line. Then the next peak is roughly 4,480 feet, and there's another peak at the end of this small ridge that's about 4,360 feet, so I'm going to call that Peak 4360. We'll see how it is. Getting from here to the top of this peak should only be about 250 feet or so climbing. I'm a little above 4,200 feet at that turnout. I'm up in the mountains because it's very warm to downright hot in the lowlands. And I haven't done much on my vacation this week. Tomorrow's my last official day before going back to work. And this is only the second time I've been out. Maybe get into something small tomorrow morning, but I have a doctor's appointment in the afternoon. But yeah, so far, heading up this, pretty easy to follow. It's basically a line in the dirt, so it looks like an old fuel break. Let's see how this works out today. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a good thumbnail for this, but I'll try. Some good views already opening up. Down here, all chaparral. This is all sun-exposed chaparral. So if you do this in the summer, do it early in the morning. Right now, I would say where we are, it's probably about 65 degrees, give or take. Probably low to mid 60s. We're down where I live. It's supposed to be in the mid 80s. The mountains are going to be cooler. So we'll see how long that lasts. See if it stays comfortable. Like I said, it's already almost 1 o'clock. So looks like this is a better defined pathway here. Looks like this came from around the bend. But the way I came up is pretty easy to spot as well. So, all right. Keep climbing up this, and I'll keep you posted. See how this goes today. Alright, so we got growing up here. I'm huffing and puffing a little bit. Haven't been hiking a lot this year. This is the third time I've been out in 2026. But enough of that. Got a lot of common chamise growing up here. Got some Adenosoma fasciculatum, vertifasciculatum. It's a dominant shrub over in this area. Not the only shrub, but the last picture I took was birchleaf mountain mahogany. And then do have a mix of that up here too. And not to be surprised, no surprise here, but couple leaf ceanothus, very abundant shrub here in this part of Cleveland National Forest. Ceanothus perplexans is very common here. So let's see, so it's gonna be a fall summit. Very quick work getting up here. Yeah, there's more summit over there. Yeah. That might be it right there. Only been hiking for a few minutes. Get a good view over to the southwest over here. Looking at Interstate 8. This is a pretty well-defined pathway. It looked like it was pretty easy to follow when I looked at the Google Earth. So I'm expecting at least this peak here to be pretty easy to reach. I don't know. I'm wondering if that's peak 4360 over there. We'll find out. But I want to get a couple other photos and see. Ooh, this south side. I went over more of a north-facing slope now on a south-facing slope here, and it's kind of warm. More sun exposed. But let me get a couple pictures of this area here. All right, so I'm getting ready. I just got over that small rise there. That was the first climb. Now I'm getting ready to make this one. I believe this will lead me to the peak, or it should be the peak over here. It's not a super far distance away, but we shall see. When I get up here, I'll have a better idea. Excruciatingly steep. It's steep. You'll get a little work out of this, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. Okay. Get a good view of Pine Valley area. A few hundred feet below us. You see a view over towards Cuyamaca Rancho State Park as well. Some pretty good views over here. Probably have some pretty good stuff to point out when I summit this peak. All right, away I keep going. Try to get up to the top of peak 4509. The chaparral is pretty thin over here too. Guess it doesn't really matter too much. I don't need to really go completely cross country because I got a very followable path ahead of me. Field break. Very easy to follow. No navigational issues whatsoever. And we've got some sugar bush up here too. Some Russo Vada. Shouldn't be surprised to see that at the lower and mid elevations here in the Laguna Range. Still hoping. Ooh, what a raven. Finally come across sugar bush above 6,000 feet. And I still think the Laguna Mountains are my best bet of finding it that high up. So we'll see. This is actually a pretty easy hike. Yeah, it's a little steep in spots, but it's actually pretty easy hiking. It's just making sure you watch where you step because of the rocks. But this is not really any harder than, maybe slightly steeper than your average trail here, but nothing too bad. And peak 4509 is the highest peak along this small ridge. I think there's a couple higher peaks over that way as well, slightly higher peaks. There might even be a peak above 5,000 over there, but not going that far. So I think what happens is, after I get to peak 4360, the one at the end of the ridge line, if I go down, I think it goes down towards some private property or something to our south and east of here. So I'm not sure if that would be a wise thing to do. And plus, if I were to try to climb the other peaks on that side, A, I probably would be crossing private property, and B, it'll probably be all off trail bushwhacking. And who knows what the chaparral looks like over there anyways. Plus, I'll start this late would not be prudent. I'd have to start an adventure like that much earlier in the day. All right, well, let's see. See what happens. See what happens when I get to the top of this. We'll see if this is it or gonna be another false summit. Alright. It's actually quite easy hike to get up here. Now I know there's gonna be a lot of up and down on this short trip I'm taking. Let's see if I can get to those other small bumps. This is the prominence winner in the whole ridge. Alright, so I'm almost at the peak, it looks like. Yeah, I'm just about here actually. Just about to climb to the top of this one. Alright, so that right there should be my next objective. And I think that's my, below that big pointy one, should be my end game. Alright, I'm just about at the summit of this one already. It's just a small rock pile here to climb. Let's see, just a quick little mini scramble, nothing big. Alright, very short climb up here. This is it, peak 4509. Thought about this one for a while. I'd seen it on the maps for a while, and I'm glad I came up here. Short, relatively easy climb, a little steep, but totally doable if you just watch where you're going. Alright, yeah, looks like we do have some pretty nice views up here. Pretty nice. Alright, so this is not even on Peak Beggar. Pretty sure it doesn't get climbed a whole lot. But with that firebreak, I'm pretty sure people do come up here. Yeah, do see some evidence of human visitation besides the firebreak. So, all right, now let me get my summit selfie, and I'll start pointing out some views up here. I think on the other peaks, I'm just going to do a quick 360. I don't think I'm going to do anything huge. But, so it looks like I'm going to have to do like a small roller coaster to get to that last one over there. Like I said, it's the one below that. I'm not going all the way over there. I think that peak's over 5,000 feet in elevation. And like I said, there's some type of property down there, and I'm not trying to get stuck over there. But first, though, before I take my summit selfie, we're getting to some red shanks up here, too. Some Adenostum sparsiifolium. So this part of the Lagunas, we do have red shanks in this area of the Lagunas. In the southern part of the Lagunas. Once we start heading up towards that way, red shank seems to drop out, even though as we get higher up in the range. But other mountain ranges like the San Jacinto Mountains, you'll see this thing well above 6,000 feet. So maybe for some reason it just doesn't bridge the gap to cross this valley and up towards the higher peaks. Chemise does. Chemise makes its way pretty much all the way up to basically the top of the Laguna. It's like near Monument Peak, and I'm pretty sure it's on Cuyapipe as well. All right, time for a summit selfie. All right, so what kind of views are we looking at here? I'm going to start by looking south. Directly to our south, we've got a couple of interesting features here. If I can get a view over the red shanks here. Right over there, that's Long Valley Peak. Right there, Long Valley Peak at about 4,900 feet or so. To its left, a little further behind, is the ridge of Corte Madera Mountain over there. And then we also have Los Pinos Mountain over there. Pretty neat. So we're going to look southeast, looking over towards Baja California and I don't know why I do that. Imperial County and more of Interstate 8 as it swings its way around here. Interstate 8 is just below me again. And yes, looking over more towards the east here, we get the 5,000 foot plus southern crest of the Lagunas. Sorry for the wind. And now we're looking more towards the northeast as we're getting closer to the 6,000 plus foot portions of the Lagunas. And I believe that is a peak bagger summit named Cottonwood Creek Peak. It's like about 4,000, I want to say 4,000, no, 5,003 or 5,400 feet roughly. Yeah, so that's Cottonwood Creek Peak. That's the name of it on Peak Baggers. It's not an official USGS name, but Cottonwood Creek is down below on the east side of it, and then you also have Cottonwood Falls. I think you can access Cottonwood Falls from, I think that turnout over there, I believe. I think there's a trail that goes down to Cottonwood Falls from that one. Never done it, so I can't say for sure. And now looking north towards some more of the Lagunas. And now we're looking northwest towards the Cuyamaca Mountains over here. Got some of the random peaks. And I believe that's the East Mesa High Point, or the East Mesa Peak 5178 that I climbed last December. I think that's East Mesa over there. And then of course there's Cuyamaca Peak, Pine Valley, and we're looking more towards the west. We got Watai Mountain right there, just a few hundred feet higher than us. And then you can see Viejas Mountain poking off just a little bit above that ridge. Interstate 8 again. Now we're looking southwest, and that's looking over towards San Miguel Mountain over there. And it looks like Siquan Peak right next to it. And then that's back to the south. Pretty good views up here. All right, I'm gonna start making my way over this way. Start getting ready for the next adventure. Alright, so now I'm leaving Peak 4509, which I'll have to reclimb on the way back. So if I make it all the way to Peak 4360, I'm going to have to reclimb both 44, I think it's 4440 or something like that, or 4480. The second peak. I'll have to reclimb that one. And then reclimb 4509 on the way back. So definitely going to have a little bit of up and down along this. This shouldn't be an extraordinarily long hike. Just wanted to get in some peak climbing today and keep it moving. Said I might get into something small tomorrow, local, before the heat kicks in. We'll see how that goes. All All right, so far, still followable. Hoping this remains the same as I climb over these next two humps. Yeah, pretty neat. Pretty neat. And there's Interstate 8. The exit I took is right down there. That's the exit for Sunrise Highway, right there. I forget the name of the road that continues on, but if you go left at that intersection, when you get off, if you're getting off coming from the west, coming from San Diego, you'll turn left, you'll turn into the highway. If you're coming from east, obviously you'll be getting off and going right. But yeah, looks like I got some work to do to get up to the second peak. The third peak, I think, has a shallower saddle. But it looks like this one's going to be this is going to be fun climbing this on the way out. But I'll just have to just do it if I want to get over there. So, well, away I go. Try to get to my second small peak of the day. All right, so I'm getting ready for an even steeper portion of the descent. So I'm coming down this pretty steeply. This right here is even steeper. I'm gonna have to really be careful on the way down. I'll be huffing and puffing on the way out, but I seem to have better footing when I go uphill. Watch out for some occasional chaparral yucca here. Let's see. All right. Yeah, it's pretty steep over here. Time to just be a little careful. When I go back up this, it'll definitely be a grind, but shouldn't be, I don't know, for some reason it shouldn't feel as steep going up. Yeah, it always looks steeper going downhill for some reason for me. It's pretty interesting. I am nearly at the saddle between 4509 and 4440, 4480. Can't remember that. Can't remember the elevation contour for the second one. But it's above 44 and below 45. All right. Just about to reach the saddle, and it'll be my next grind. Woo-wee! Ay, ay, ay. All right. I'll have to... I can see my other peak still quite a ways away. Worst came to worst, which I doubt it, I do have a headlamp, flashlight, and batteries. I do have all of those, if need be, and I got plenty of water to get me back. All right, so there's our saddle. There's our first peak, and this will be my second peak here. Well, it should be that second hump there. That first one I think is a false summit. From what it looks like there's a wide open path. Here at the saddle, the trail's a little less defined, but, and I just mean there being a simple little line in the dirt, a line between the shrubs, because it's pretty open over here, but it's a very easy firebreak to follow, and it looks like once we get past this open spot, it looks like a little miniature path resumes. You shouldn't have any navigation problems over here. All right, so it looks like my next little doozy climb right there coming up. Looks like my path is going to kind of go between these patches of shrubs here. All right. There we go. Right through this little passage through the shrubs. Okay. Oh, we go between some red shakes, some larger red shakes. So I'll see when I'm over there. I have to change some batteries. There's the exit right there. Right over there. Pretty cool. All right. See you on the next clip. Okay. Let's see. I gotta look for the path over here. Okay, looks like I just jog a little bit to the left of where I was before. It looks like it continues over here. I was thinking I was gonna have to get into a bushwhack for a minute. But no, here it is. Pretty followable path right here. Right through the red shanks. It's more Adenostoma sparcifolium. Alright. Let's see. I gotta kind of look around a little bit here. This section's a little less distinct, but I did see a pathway carving its way up the hill, so I should be able to maintain a course to get up there. Looks like it's probably a very old firebreak. Okay. All right. Okay. It's a little indistinct here, but there's a pathway coming this way. All right. Let's see. There's the first peak. Right up there, 4509. All right. Onward and upward. All right. So I am nearing the top of the false summit. Not that bad coming up here so far. Pretty chill. I think that's the peak over there. Not bad. Not that pointy one again. So, look at that rocky outcropping. Right there, I think it's going to be it. I think that's going to be my summit. A little warm out here. Temperatures over here, since I'm more in direct sun, more exposure up here. It's probably in the upper 60s over here, but it feels warmer because of the sun bouncing off the lighter colored soil. Let's see if that's going to be my summit over there. see. Here's another bump in the ridge. Like I said, I think the one ahead of it, the one beyond it, should be a little bit higher. And that's what it looks like from here. Yeah, it's a little higher. It's not that much further. Should be making my second peak pretty soon. Pretty easy to follow. When you're at that first saddle, that first dip along the way past peak 4509, you have to look around a little bit for a path to get through the shrubs. It's an interesting looking ridgeline. Yeah, there's the first peak. That made some pretty good distance already. The hiking between the saddle and here, it's pretty easy. Like I said, coming down the southeast facing slope of peak 4509 is pretty steep, which means I'll have to take my time coming back, but for the most part, hiking's pretty easy. I'm about ready to summit something else. So let's see. I'm just about to reach this rocky outcrop here, which should mark the summit. Coming across something I haven't seen in a while. Haven't seen in a few years. Looks like Cleveland monkey flower. Well, this looks like Diplochus clevelandi, variety clevelandi. Cleveland monkey flower. Last time I saw that was a few years ago in another part of the Cleveland National Forest over in Orange County in the Santa Ana Mountains. Well, we've got some Cleveland monkey flower around here too. All right, let's see what my best approach to this is going to be. Not sure what this is. Looks like a constructed windbreak or something. I do assume that during strong Santa Ana winds and other type of weather events, it can get pretty windy here because we do have a valley between the lagunas and the other mountains to the south. So I imagine it gets very windy here. It's a little breezy at times, but it's not super bad. All right, let's go find where the high point is. I suspect is over there. Whoops. Go ahead and summit this puppy. I think this is it. Okay, well, here's my second small peak of the day. Peak 4440. I'll have a better estimate once I double check and do my maps. I think this is about 4,440 feet roughly. So I want to call this 4440 for the sake of this video. Yes, it is. Second peak of the day. Time for a summit selfie, then a quick 360, maybe a quick bottle of water, and then off to 4360 over there. So we got a third peak of the day. Very short lick, short but sweet. Well, I guess it's time for a 360. All right. Oh, there's a. Okay, so wow, the view is definitely a little bit different since I'm a little further east. There's Long Valley Peak again to my southwest. That real pointy one there, and its little subsidiary summit. But now I can point out a little bit more of the view from Interstate 8. There's that property I was to which I was referring earlier, and then there's a Border Patrol checkpoint right down there. Yeah, somebody's got a nice little lake down there on that property. It's like Coast Live Oaks. Here's my next destination over here to the southeast. Yeah, that peak's over 5,000 feet. And I think there's a way to get up there too. I think there might be a way to get up there. I know there's some other smaller peaks over there. There might be a firebreak on the other side of that. I'm not sure. there is, I would like to try that one day. Obviously when I have more time, because it's just about 2 o'clock right now. In fact, it's only 1:30, 1:34. So I'm going to try to make the most amount of the daylight I have since it's January. And then let me go finish out this little 360. So again, this is looking southeast, and again, looking north, looking northwest towards Cuyamaca once again, looking west towards Watai Mountain, and then back to the south. All right, so let me make sure I make the daylight I have, just in case it takes me longer than I anticipate to get back, because I'm going to have a couple of steep climbs ahead of me. I think I got another pretty steep descent coming here. Oh, all right. All right. Let's see. All right. Okay. Let's see how much of a descent I have. Ooh, this might be another steep one. Ooh. Oh boy. Ooh. Looks like I got another steep one ahead of me. All right, well, if I want to get to this third peak, I'm just going to have to just buck up and do it. Oh, this is going to be a little rockier than the last one. There's more of that Cleveland monkey flower here, too. And then we got some hollyleaf cherry popping up right over here, which is pretty neat. Hey. It's a pretty big hole right there. Oh boy. This one's going to be sketchy. Hey. Oh, maybe I should have brought hiking poles. Woo! I'm going to have to be careful on this one, so I'm going to go ahead and shut down the video for a while until I get through this gnarly section here. Oh. Hey. Yeah, this will definitely take some time to get back. Whew. Okay, I'll see you on the next clip. I'm going to really have to go down this slowly. All right, so I am working my way down this. I'm actually just a little bit off of the firebreak, kind of where the shrubs are. The soil seems to be a little more stable here. Yeah, this is sketchy. This is very sketchy. It's class 1 because it's walking, but boy is it sketchy. Ooh-wee. So I'm actually kind of sticking to the south side of the firebreak where there are chaparral shrubs to which I can anchor myself, because yeah, this is crazy right here. I didn't expect it to be this crazy, but like I said, I'm trying to get to that peak. It doesn't look too bad going up to the peak from here. It doesn't look extraordinarily steep. So yeah, I'm actually about 15-20 feet to the south of the firebreak, and I have some larger, more stable rocks here and less erodible soil because there's a lot of chaparral over here, and it's just a small wade through ceanothus and chamise, so it's not too bad. But I'm really close. I'm actually really close to the firebreak. Like I said, I'm just a little bit off from it, just so I can feel a little more secure going down this gnarly slope here. Okay, I think I might be getting to where it might be a little less crazy. Actually, I feel a lot more comfortable slightly off trail than I do on that firebreak. Ooh-wee. I'm not that far from the saddle. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty high angle here too, but that's high angle and it's very erodible. So I feel staying slightly off the fire break might be safer. But of course, you know, do your usual look out for obstacles when you're going through the shrubs. You know, especially in hotter weather when there might be snakes out, venomous pit vipers. But okay, I'm almost at this saddle, and there's the fire break there. I could probably just rejoin the fire break pretty soon. Still a little loose over here, but I feel more secure with the shrubs, especially their extensive root systems. The chaparral shrubs have wide, expansive, and extensively deep root systems that hold the soil in place. So, yeah, I'm going to rejoin the actual fire break. So on my map, you'll see a little bit of my descent route from this peak will be on the side of the fire break. On the way back up, I don't know. But I see something interesting up ahead. Something botanically interesting. So, let me get to that. It's still pretty rocky over here, but the angle of soil is much less steep. So we got two related cousins here. Got two yuccas here. On the left is the Mojave yucca, Yucca scadigera, which can get much taller than that. And then the small rosette of chaparral yucca, Hespero yucca whippley. So Mojave yucca, chaparral yucca. Two related plants in the asparagus family, in the agave section of the asparagus family. All right, so I'm just about to reach the saddle, and looks like I got a much smaller climb to get up to that peak. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, that looks really steep going uphill too. It looks just as steep going uphill as going downhill. So yeah, I got a nice little climb to get up there. Luckily, it's not an extremely long, sustained climb. All right. So it looks like I got to go over. Whoa! What the heck was that? I think a grasshopper bumped into me. Felt something on my fingers. So I wonder if I have another big dip over here. I hope not. All right, here it's not really much of a trail per se, but it's easy to navigate because you're on a pretty easy open ridge. So all you got to do is just walk around the smaller obstacles, shrubs, rocks, branches, and stems. And I think I'm gonna have some more downhill coming up. All right, so maybe this will be a little more challenging than I anticipated. It's okay to get a little challenge in. Okay. So looks like I got another small. Oh no, it's not even that much. It's just maybe about 10, 15 feet at most before I get up to that next slope. Wow. But yeah, like I said, some of it's very well-defined trail-like situation where there's a line between the plants. And there are sections where it's just open fire break like this. But like I said, navigation shouldn't be really an issue. You study the route beforehand, you'll be fine. Like I said, just when it becomes more open or a little brushier, just stay on the ridge, you'll be fine. Just have to move, maybe zigzag a little bit side to side. All right, so I got a pretty small climb here. I don't know if this might be a false one, I don't know. This might be a false peak, I don't know. But I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to start climbing up that. All All right, catch you on the next clip. All right, so I've left the saddle. This is an easy one. This slope here is very easy. It's not even steep. That's what I get to climb back over when I'm done. Ay, ay, ay. Like I said, when I came down, started coming down on the path. But then, once I got down maybe about 30 or so feet from the peak, I ended up going off and going south of the firebreak. And I might take that strategy going back up too. That might actually help, because that's gonna be a beast to climb when I'm done making my way back over there. So I got some pretty decent climbs on the way back, because this is the furthest peak out, and it's the lowest of the three. So you will get a little bit of a workout. And you know what? That's all right. I kind of need it after a very lackluster start to 2026. Today's the 6th day I've been on vacation, only the 2nd time I've gone hiking. I said my hiking video from Tuesday. I went to Powell Mountain State Park. Went back to Booker Hill on one hike, and then I hiked in Dome Valley to the historic Weir on my second short hike. And that time I took a friend of mine, not the usual friend you see with me, Brett. You'll see a friend I made at work who relatively new to this area and want to show my friend a good time to experience what this area has to offer. So be on the lookout for that video. Probably be up before this, perhaps, but we'll see. All right. Okay. Should be up at the top of this pretty soon, I think. I don't know if there's a false summit here. We'll see. Okay. Metal stake, metal pole at the top of this hill. I'm thinking this is going to be it. I think this is it. I don't see anything higher ahead of me in the immediate ridge line. Okay. All right. A little short hat trick today. Peak 4360 here in the southern end of the Laguna Mountains. All right. Cool. Pretty neat. Cool, I'm glad I made it up here. I started descending that. I was thinking, do I want to commit myself to that? Because it looks pretty sketchy. Yeah, it's pretty sketchy, but I made it. And, yep, this is the southern edge of the ridgeline before it descends towards that valley and towards that property over there. I think there's a trail. There might be a trail that skirts the outside. There's a road there, but I don't know if that's a private road or if that's a hiking path. I don't know. But I think it leads into Cottonwood Canyon. It's Cottonwood Canyon. I think it's part of Cottonwood Creek down there, over towards the southeast. A lot of coast live oak down there. A lot of southern coast live oak growing in this valley. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. Yeah, that's a pretty cool looking area. I wouldn't mind being an owner of that property. That's beautiful. You can be nestled between these two peaks. I bet you it gets pretty chilly down there. You probably get some good cold air drainage because you got this ridge over here. And I think one of these is Bear Valley Peak. I don't know if it's this one here. That one of these is going to be Bear Valley Peak, and it might be this one here. I'll have to double check. Look on Google Earth and look on Peak Bagger. But I think that's Bear Valley Peak right there. That might be. I'll have to double check. And then behind it, somewhere behind it, should be Buckman Benchmark, Buckman Peak. And 2 peaks I would like to hit in the relatively near future before it gets too hot to even do these elevations. Alright, so I guess I'll do a quick 360 over here. I'm going to start by looking off to the south. And like I said, I think that might be Bear Valley Peak. Don't quote me on it, but it looks like it'd be about 400 feet higher than this. Bear Valley Peak is approximately 4,760 feet. So that looks like that could potentially be it right there. And then looking off to the east, there's that peak there. I think that's 5,100 something. Like I said, you'll see the text on the screen, so I'll have a better idea by the time I research this, and you'll have a better idea after I've been able to put all the research on there. And this is looking over towards the northeast. I wonder if that's Cuyapaipe. I don't know if you can see it from here. I wonder if that's Cuyapaipe Mountain right there. It might be. It might be Cuyapaipe, but I'm not sure. If that is, then I think that's Peak 6301. Used to be known as Peak 6299, aka Mount Laguna or Cleveland National Forest High Point. If that is indeed Cuyapaipe, again, I'll either have a correction or an affirmation on there. And then looking off towards the north, northwest, looking off over there. One of those has got to be Sook Peak. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right over there. That should be East Mesa Peak 5178. Last time I was in Cuyamaca Rancho. And then, looking off towards the west-northwest, there's Peak 4440. I'm going to call it that for now. And then there's Peak 4509. So I got to go all the way back over there. And then there was the small little first rise, the first fall summit before getting to 4509. So yeah, definitely going to be definitely glad I made it all the way over here. I do have a couple of pretty decent climbs on the way out. So I'm going to have to kind of pace myself for this one. Maybe get some summit shots and a summit selfie. Just found something on the ground here. Survey monument. San Diego County Survey Monument, 1979. I'm going to leave this here because, yeah, I'm going to leave this here. But I was just curious. That's pretty neat. 1979. So looks like, yeah, kind of like a survey marker. But like with stuff like that, I'm not that guy who goes taking stuff from the peak, bringing home as souvenirs. My souvenirs are my photographs. That was pretty cool. All right, so now I'm going to start leaving this peak. I got 2 pretty decent climbs ahead of me. Actually, this one I think is going to be the worst because it's going to be nearly vertical, but gotta start making my way back to the car. Alright. Cool, there was even a little monument. I don't know if that was that had to have been attached to something, that little metal strip. Had to have been attached to something. But it was loose. So So I just figured to pick it up, look at it, put it back where I found it. Because I think if you disturb or remove stuff like that, I know actually it can be. I know if you pull a benchmark, say you pull an actual benchmark off, those round circular survey markers, those round circular ones you see on a lot of peaks and other areas, you can actually you can either be fined or in prison. It's actually a crime. You can be incarcerated for that, I believe, or at least fined. So I leave it the way I see it. Like, that was loose, so I picked it up to look at it and just put it back where I found it. Out of respect. Really cool. This was a cool little trip. Really glad I made it all the way over here. I knew I was gonna hit this one day. Today I was originally just gonna go drive higher up and mess around in the higher elevations, closer to 5,500 to 6,000 feet. I figured it'd be the coolest up there, but weather actually pretty decent here. It's not too bad. So like I said, it's a little warm when you're going up a south-facing slope, but yeah, so it wasn't too bad. All right, getting a little off track here. Like I said, navigation's pretty simple. Follow the ridge. Follow the ridge over the bumps. If you want to make a little mini 3-summit hat trick like I did, 3 peaks today. Felt nice to get a little hat trick in. And it's definitely worth it. Like I said, on the way back, if you're doing this hike, just be aware you will have to climb over the first 2 peaks. So it's going to be like you're summiting 5 peaks, 3 different peaks, but 2 of them twice. And, you know, just be aware you do have some work to do on the way back. But, hey, at the end of it, visited 3 small peaks on a small ridgeline. Got to see some nice plant life. Toyon right here, a couple toyons occasionally popping up here too. Pretty cool. Got to see some neat plants, some great views, some good exercise. It's a W for me. All right, enough yapping and more ambling. All right, one other thing I wanted to point out. This area kind of reminds me of the Trabuco Ranger District of the Cleveland National Forest, like the Santa Ana Mountains, because there are a lot of peaks that are near the roads that have fire breaks going up to them. This kind of reminds me, this climb right here kind of reminds me of climbing up Pleasant's Peak from the saddle. When you get on that fire break / use trail to get from Main Divide up to the top of Pleasant's Peak in the northern Santa Ana Mountains. That's how steep and loose it is. Very much reminds me of that. So when I was going down it, it felt the same amount of tension in my feet. You'll feel tension in your feet because the soil's pretty loose on the fire breaks. That's why sometimes hiking near the shrubs, you might have some better soil stability that might help you better navigate your way without too much peril. Because that is a very steep slope, and that does remind me of the final climb up to Pleasant's Peak over along the Orange and Riverside County borders. So if you've ever done that peak before and you were watching this video, if you ever done Pleasant's Peak, let me know if the experience you saw me doing on this video reminds you of the experience of going up and down Pleasant's Peak. Especially going down, that was pretty gnarly. All right. Go over this little hump, and then it's time to climb. All right, so I'm trying to give myself a minute or two just to pause and get up the nerve to climb up that. Gotta do it if I want to get back to the car. One thing I noticed that on this fire break, especially between this peak and peak 4360, Been noticing a lot of deer hoof prints here in the firebreak. Let's see if I can find one. I took a picture of one before summiting 4360, but there were a lot more of them, a lot more visible. Well, I think this is a hoof print right here. It's kind of hard to tell, but I think that's a hoof print there. There are a bunch of mule deer, southern mule deer hoof prints, especially on that small little mini saddle. It's very open. So it looks like deer use this as a transit hub or something. Probably use this as a way to get through the area. Yeah, these ones are a little compromised probably because of the rains earlier this month. But yeah, so the shape of the prints over here isn't as evident, but over there, where there was a lot more open ground, the hoof prints were very clearly evident. You could tell that they were mule deer. All right, let me see. I'm going to try to start going up this firebreak and see how it is going uphill. At least I can always bail out and hike through the chaparral if I need to. So, all right. Here comes the first really big workout on my return leg. Woo-wee! But I think, though, the climb up to Pleasant's Peak is higher, it's longer. The climb to Pleasant's Peak from the saddle is taller. The steepness is about the same, but I think there's more of a climb up to Pleasant's from its saddle, I think. This is just going to be a couple hundred feet. The one up to Pleasant's Peak, I think, is it's a few more hundred feet, I think. Or it's been years since I climbed up Pleasant's Peak, 2019. Well, if you want to see that video, I do have a video for Pleasant's Peak hike. The last one I did, made a video out of that a couple years ago. Made a video for it. You can check it out if you want to see how I hiked from the city of Corona in northwest Riverside County all the way up to the top of Pleasant's Peak, off the Skyline Trail and Main Divide. That was about a 19 and a half mile hike. I think it was the longest hike I've done. One of the longest hikes I've done in years. All right, here I go. This part right here is not so bad, but it's a little more stable here. But once I get over to the base of this steeper slope, that's where you really have to take your time and be careful. All right, so it's just a quick update. I'm just taking my time. So far, I've stuck to the firebreak. Just started getting a little sketchier. Definitely less sketchy than going the way down. Started to get a little more slippery on my way back up, but not as bad as when I was going down. Not as bad at all. I feel like I have better control going uphill. Figured I would throw that in as a quick update. It ain't perfect, but I feel I have better control of my movement going uphill than going downhill. All right, so we have a little ways to go. Nice chunk of the way up already. So I'll catch you near the top of 4440. All right, just about here, near the top of 4440. All right. Ooh, that breeze feels good. That was easier than I thought. Wasn't easy, but easier than I thought it was going to be. All right. Very cool. Here's a second peak right here. Not bother walking back up to it. Cool. Now, time to go down towards one more saddle. One more steep uphill climb. Then it's 95% downhill on the way back. It's a very little short, small hole to climb, which will be a piece of cake. Here's that windbreak again. Pretty cool. There's some bush poppy here too. Andromedon rigida, this one's been around for a while. I don't think these shrubs are typically known for having extreme longevity because these are fire followers. This came up after the last fire swept through this area, probably in the early 2000s. Maybe the cedar fire. Some other fire was around here then. But it has put in a couple decades of growth. Look at it. It's been around for a couple decades. Yes, Andromedon rigida. In a month or two, you should start getting some yellow flowers on it. Beautiful four-petaled yellow flowers. Very reminiscent of true poppies. Well, it is in the poppy family of Papaveraceae. So, it is in the poppy family. Alright, time for a couple pictures around here. Then it's time to move over this little mini hump. Down to my next saddle. Alright, so I was talking about the other saddle before Peak 4360. Yeah, you could tell. These are deer hoof prints. Southern mule deer. Leucoileus hemionus fuliginatus. Fuliginatus is the southern subspecies that we have here in San Diego County, down in the Baja. Once you go into Orange County and northbound, you get the subspecies Californicus, the California mule deer. So I was assuming right around where the Santa Ana Mountains, start up in Riverside, Orange County. We start grading from Fuliginatus to Californicus for mule deer subspecies. So the Santa Ana Mountains might have some intergrading, possibly between subspecies. I'm curious about that. I haven't done any formal research on the combination of mule deer subspecies, but it'd be something interesting to read. Look at these old chamise. Look at this one here. Wow. This one. Look at that. You can see its root burrow. This is why, right here, this is why these plants re-sprout after they burn in a fire, provided the root burrow is more in the ground. If another fire were to come through here now, this burrow might get burnt away, possibly. Possibly. But yeah, this is the lignotuber, or the root burrow. It's a big, massive, woody chunk where the roots extend down into the soil and the branches extend up into the air. This plant is partially exposed, but it's still technically alive. This is a different plant right here. This is a different shrub. But this is, again, this is common chamise. Adenosoma fasciculatum, variety fasciculatum. Can resprout, and its seeds can germinate the rainy season after a fire blows through, if there's sufficient rainfall. So that's what we call a lignotuber, or root burrow. Sometimes when you're hiking these fire breaks, where they get cleared, you can actually see remnant root burrows like this. Here's an old root burrow from a chaparral shrub. I'm not sure what species. Probably chamise. But you can see, when they clear cut these field breaks, a lot of times you'll see a bunch of massive, roughly rounded wood, pieces of wood, just like that. That's a root burrow. That's another root burrow. They probably got bulldozed by the firebreak construction. There's another root burrow. Those are root burrows that you're seeing if you do firebreak hiking like I do. Another root burrow. So you'll see a lot of them when the chaparral gets churned up by bulldozers or whatever equipment they're using. You'll see huge hunks of, roughly rounded hunks of wood scattered about. And those are the root burrows that were chewed up by the mechanism used to clear these fuel breaks. So just another interesting piece of trivia. So I have hiked quite a few fire breaks in my day. And here we go. Next little hump, little miniature hump. And then I go down, and I got my final major climb, heading back up to 4509. So let's keep this pushing. Okay, so now we're in the little bit brushier portion here as we dip down to this little mini section here with all the beautiful red shanks, Adenosoma sparsiifolium. And we do have a nice patch of it in this section. Pretty nice to see. So yes, we're approaching a section where it's going to be a little brushier, where a little bit of just maneuvering around will be necessary to avoid any real bushwhacking, but I've just brushed up against a few shrubs here and there. This is definitely not a huge bushwhacking event, so if you maneuver your way around, you'll be fine. Again, I had really no trouble getting over here. Just look for the passageway between these shrubs. Again, look at all this red shank over here. This is always a treat. Whenever I come across this plant, it's always a treat. And this is the much larger, much less common cousin, of course, Adenosoma fasciculatum, verdifasciculatum, the common chamise. So these two are very close relatives. The only two members in the world in the genus Adenosoma. Adenosoma fasciculatum, verdifasciculatum, chamise, and Adenosoma sparsiifolium, red shanks, ribbonwood. Ribbonwood's another name for all the shreddy, ribbony bark that peels off of it. Chamise does that too, though, but it's a lot more conspicuous on red shanks, because red shanks, a lot of times you can see more of their trunks. Chamise is a lot bushier, but you look hard enough, you'll see it. All right, so I got a small mound over here to climb, small dip, and then that. That's me just coming down from the peak. I'm not really rushing. It's a little after 2:30 right now. It's like about 2:35 in the afternoon, so still got time. Should have more than enough time to make the descent. And then another ascent up peak 4509. So we'll see. Keep heading up this way and keep you posted on my progress. All right, folks. I'm at the base of the last major climb of the day, getting back up to peak 4509. Ooh. This one was pretty steep too, not gonna lie. It's pretty steep coming down. But it didn't feel as tense as the footing coming down from 4440. So let's see. Let's take my time. Got probably just a couple hundred feet. It's not like it's going to be 400 or 500 feet plus, but it's definitely going to be a workout. So here I go, up the next one. See you up the way. Alright, so I'm slowly working my way up. Still got a ways to go. But here's another beautiful sugar bush right here, Rusovata. See, it's flower buds. They preset their flower buds the summer and fall before. When the twig stops growing for the year, puts out its last leaves, the ends of the twigs will send out next year's flower buds. So these were set out in summer and fall of 2025, and they'll be blooming probably in a few weeks to a couple months here in 2026. All right, so still working my way up this. Not as loose as the other firebreak, but it's pretty steep. Just taking my time, not rushing. Again, I got plenty of daylight, and like I said, even if I didn't, I'm not really tripping because the way back down is pretty easy to follow, and I do have illumination gear if need be, which is pretty much unlikely at this point. But it's there if I need it. All right. Probably see you at the top for a quick little mini update. See you then. Unless something else comes up before then. All right, well, I just wanted to point out, there we are, peak 4440. There was the fall summit there. But yeah. And there, 4360. Kind of looking far away now. So, still got a ways to go. Still got some climbing to do. But just wanted to point out that view. It's pretty nice. Very nice views on this hike. And hopefully I'll be at the top of this soon so I can enjoy it downhill. Alright, so I'm over the hump. Over the major hump. Just a small little knoll here till I recrest peak 3509. Yeah, that was easier. That was easier than I anticipated it to be. Just took my time. Only stopped maybe once or twice to catch my breath. But it's pretty easy getting up that. Just took my time, and sometimes if you take smaller steps slower, you can conserve energy. That's what I've noticed when you're doing steep uphill hikes. Sometimes you can conserve energy by slowing your pace a lot, especially if you've been doing a lot of up and down. And you know, when you've done a lot of up and down during a hike, you're probably gonna start feeling tired when you have a lot of uphill on the way back to your car. What you can do is conserve energy on those uphills by taking smaller steps and a slower pace. All right, back at peak 4509. Second time I've been on this one today. All right. Now, it's mostly downhill. I just have a small, very small little knoll to climb up on the way back down. It shouldn't be that bad, honestly. Barely gonna notice it. All right. All right. Now it's time for the largely downhill return. All right. Yeah, this first peak was pretty easy. There are some steep spots, of course, but the first peak was actually pretty easy. Easy to reach it. Had no trouble getting up here. This last stretch to the peak was very easy. So getting down shouldn't be too bad either. It's a little steep in spots, but like I said, this first peak is easy. It's a very short distance from the big turnout on Sunrise Highway, so you should have an easy time if you just wanted to just get to this one, just to get to something quickly and without climbing the other peaks. This would make a really quick little appetizer hike if you're warming up to do something further down. But the hike I did going to the other two small summits actually made this a nice little short but decent workout of a hike. Some steep spots in between the peaks. Yeah, not gonna lie, this has been a pretty good outing. Like I said, I just got to get down to that little dip, small little mound over there, and then it's just back down to the car. All right, well, see you down the way. Yes, very mellow descent. I can feel a breeze blowing out of the northeast right now, so it's kind of a Santa Ana wind, but up here it's a little cooler. The breeze feels delightful. It's a little dry, but the breeze bringing some cool air with it, and it feels very pleasant. And this downhill, it's rocky, but it's not bad. Going back down this has been pretty mellow, actually. I'm almost down at the small dip. Like I said, I just got to climb 20 feet up, gain about 20, maybe 20, 25 feet of elevation to get over that knoll, and that's not even gonna be a problem. There's a cool little rock outcrop over there too. It's kind of interesting looking, but yeah, it's rocky, so just be careful. But actually, the slope coming down this from peak 4509 was pretty mellow. I'm almost at this little dip right now. There's a lot of sugar bush over at that rock outcrop. Kind of curious about it. Curious about visiting it. Yeah, this is a pretty enjoyable little hike. Little sense of adventure. Not super far from anything. Getting completely lost around here, you'd have to actually kind of try hard to get lost. Literally, if you went off trail to explore, then make sure you know the area. Yeah, it's been a very easy descent since the peak. The downhill is pretty chill. Yeah, there's an interesting jumble of rocks over here. Beautiful chamise up here. And of course, been some white sage here. Right there, Salvia apiana. The Laguna Mountains, The only place where I've ever seen white sage above 6,000 feet elevation. It's crazy. I've always figured I'd see sugarbush, rusovata. Figured I'd always see that before I saw white sage above 6,000 feet. I know I've seen white sage close to it. Some of these higher 5,600, 5,700 foot hills and peaks in the area. But yeah, hiking along the PCT by Burnt Rancheria Campground, just east of Burnt Rancheria, there's a stand of white sage at about 6,040 feet above sea level. Highest I've ever seen white sage, which I was back on my October 8th hike when I did try to get to Burnt Rancheria High Point, a small little knoll east of Burnt Rancheria. But I also visited Desert View High Point. That one I've made it. 2 little 6,070 foot knolls. Alright, so I'm just going to go a little off trail for a minute just to see this little spot here. Looks interesting. Pretty neat. Alright, so it'll just be a little extra adventure flavor before I head back. Just wanted to visit this little mound here. There's Peak 4509, where I just visited the second time today on the way back from the other peaks. Let me get out to the top of this little mound here. Wow, pretty neat. All right. This little rocky outcropping I've been seeing off the trail. I've had to check this out for a minute. There's the turnout. That's the northern end of it. I'm parked towards the southern end of it, but there's the turnout where I'm parked. I'm wondering if that peak right there, it's kind of hard to see. There's not a big ridge back there, but there's a small peak here too. That could be worthy of an attempt. Chaparral might be similar to how it is over here. If it's similar to over here, that'll be off trail. I don't think I see a firebreak going up there, but I don't know. Maybe might be something going up there. Pretty cool little rock outcrop here. Let me get a little picture here. First, hollyleaf redberry, Rhamnus ilicifolia, growing up here on this little small knoll. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and leave this little rocky knoll here. I guess I'll leave this as stop number 4 on my map. So the 3 peaks I visited before will be stops 1 through 3, respectively, on my hiking map. This should be a pretty easy one to trace out. The hike I did in Doan Valley, Powell Mountain State Park, is going to be much more difficult to trace because you can't really see a lot of the trail on Google Earth. Because a lot of the route is extremely heavily forested. If you've ever been to Palomar Mountain in areas is very heavily forested. You really feel like you basically feel like you're in the Pacific Northwest. It does give off a Pacific Northwest vibe, like you're up in Oregon or Washington. It does give off that kind of vibe. Alright, so I'm here at this opening. I'm just going to go turn left to get back to the firebreak. There's one going down this way too. I'm not going to do it today. Like I said, well, let's see. Wait a minute. Let's see. Let's make sure I'm on the actual firebreak. Okay, so I'm actually on the trail. Okay, I'm actually on the firebreak trail. Just wanted to make sure. So I actually got to go down this way. Actually, I just made a quick beeline over there. Yeah. All right. And there's the turnout. I'm getting a lot closer to it now. It's only a matter of minutes before I'm going to be bidding adieu from this cool little hike. I've been out for a couple hours, hiking since about quarter to one. I left my house at about 12, and I had to stop off to get gas before coming out here because I drove from my house in Santee to pick up my friend, and then went to Powell Mountain and back. And not only when I was up there, I went to a few different spots, so I used up quite a bit of gas that way. So I had to fill up before coming out here today. All right, I swear it's going to get a little steep here. I can see, you can kind of see my car down there. I got a Forest Service truck, that green truck, coming down Sunrise Highway. I think that's a CAL FIRE truck or something, or a Forest Service truck. There's my car down there, waiting for me down at that pullout. I doubt that whatever time you come to hike this, I doubt you're going to have much of any company at all. I don't think this gets visited extremely commonly. I imagine some people do just to do what I do, just check out some random spots. But I've had my eyes on this small cluster of peaks for a little bit. I've thought about it. I'm just glad I finally made it out here. All right. This part's going to be a little steep right now, but it shouldn't be too bad. A little rocky, just watch your step. There's Birch Leaf Mountain mahogany. Circuit carpus betuloides, ready betuloides. All right. Should be back in my car in a few minutes. All right, so this is the track I started coming up right here. Harder to see, there's a lot of grass growing on it. But there's a trail over here. I'm gonna follow this. So I came up right here. You kind of see the line in the soil. I came up that directly from where those bushes are near my car. I want to see where this goes. I'm kind of curious. Wow. I think this is just gonna edge over there at a slightly different angle. Interesting. Yeah, this trail, this pathway here is a lot easier. It actually feels like a regular trail. It's not, as far as I can tell. I don't think there are any Forest Service trails in this general vicinity. But yeah, I'm gonna see, maybe do some research to see if there's a way I could maybe get up to that peak there. That one right there in the foreground. And there'd be another small summit to get along my way there too. That could be a potential cross-country hike if the chaparral is similar to how it was on this hike. That's one of those things where I'm probably going to have to actually attempt it to find out. All right, so this trail just kind of leads a little more of a slightly more of a roundabout fashion to get down to the base of the field break. But apparently it's had enough traffic to where there's a very easy to follow scuffed-in path. Almost kind of sad to see this little peak climb go. This is actually kind of neat. I like climbing different peaks in these mountains. You get some really cool different perspectives on in these mountain ranges, especially these ones that people don't typically climb. That's why I like the random peaks. You could generally going to have them to yourself. Occasionally on a peak that's known on Peak Bagger, you might occasionally run across somebody, which actually for me is quite rare. I think it's happened a couple of times on those random peaks that are listed on Peak Bagger. I think I've had a couple times where I ran across somebody. Yeah, I know one for certain was Peak 5698 near Chilao and Angeles National Forest in the Chilao area. I remember one day, the last time I was up there back in 2021, I hiked up to Peak 5698, and a guy was as I was at the summit, a guy was coming up with his dog. I was like, oh, okay. Huh? I said, sometimes these fire breaks can lead to some pretty magical spots. Like this Birchleaf Mountain mahogany grove that I missed on the way up, because I took a fainter path right across from where my car is parked. Cool. So here's the turnout. This leads right to the turnout. There's Sunrise Highway. Alright, well, I guess that's going to do it for this one. Pretty cool. That was worth it. That was definitely worth it, in my opinion. Very much worth taking that extra trip. Glad I did. Right, this little spot here. Look at all this beautiful mountain mahogany. Some bigger specimens here. Look at that. Cercocarpus betuloides, variety betuloides. Here's some older, larger specimens. To be fair, I've seen them get much larger than this. There's one on the saddle between Santiago and Majestica Peaks. I don't know, it might have burnt now. I don't know, it might not be there anymore. Well, it probably respawned. Last time I was there, in 2018, I was at the saddle between Santiago and Majestica. This thing was probably about 25 feet tall. It was a very large multi-trunk tree-sized thicket. Quite a bit bigger than these. These are pretty decent size too. And then here's a non-native annual called, this is Malva parviflora, cheeseweed, or weedy mallow. It's not native, it's an annual. I guess you'll see it up here above 4,000 feet. So there we go. There are the other two peaks I visited. First peak is beyond that. So that's where I started. This is where I started going on this faint scuffed-in path. Came back down the other side. But yeah, there are the other two peaks I visited today. Peak 4440 and Peak 4360. Really good hike. So it's gonna do it for me. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming along with me on this adventure. Come join me at a small benchmark over here. Pretty cool. Alright, thanks for watching my video. Hope to see you on the next adventure.